All right. Welcome to the summary for a new season that I'm starting. It is the off season, kind of like a league that they're running in conjunction with another league that I was in, the Rotom Appliance Draft League. This was originally another league, but they merged with the Rotom Draft League, and now it's all kind of one thing, which is really cool. One reason I'm super excited for this, other than it being in a league that I already know a lot of people in, a lot of my friends are in this league, is the format National Dex Low Tier. And that's really cool. Having low tier stuff really highlights a lot of the things I really like about Draft League, being forced to use Pokemon that you would normally use, or being forced to use them in unique and different ways that you wouldn't normally see. That's one of my favorite things about draft leagues, and why it's my favorite way to play Pokemon. In case you don't already know, I'm Referencer, I'm the coach of the Evergrande Steelix, and let's go ahead and get into the team that I've drafted. I'm extremely happy with this team. I think it's like one of my favorite teams that I've drafted so far, because just the versatility and the set variety that I can have is insane, and I think you'll agree with me once you see some of my picks. Speaking of set versatility, first up we've got a crazy Pokemon in low tier. We've got Silvally. Now this thing is the set versatility Pokemon. For those of you who don't know what Silvally is, it's basically an artificial Arceus, which is essentially, a company woke up one day and decided to build a robot god, which is sick as hell. But Silvally changes its type based on a specific held item it's holding, called a memory. And there's a one memory for each type. I can run this as any type, and it also gets a 120 power base physical attack move that is of the type that Silvally is. If you understand what I'm saying, it's basically a 120 power base stab move for whatever type I am, which is great in Draft League because I can pick a type that the opposing team really struggles to break, or a type that is very offensively strong into them that doesn't have a lot of resists on the team. And this Pokemon is insanely versatile. Normally it's held back by its base 95 stat spread, but in a low tier league, that's really good. It's very bulky, it hits very hard, it's pretty fast. 95 bulk isn't bad even in high tier leagues. Like, that's definitely usable. By no stretch of the imagination is it like a downside. And 95 offense and 95 speed is a little weak in the current generation because of the crazy power creep, but in low tier leagues, it's really pretty solid. It's nothing to complain about for sure, especially with that 120 power base move. That's pretty good. Not to mention the insane move pool this thing gets. We've of course got the multi-attack, which is my 120 power base stab move. We've got Sword Stance, Flame Charge, any type of coverage you can imagine, I get it. All right, anything you want. I've got physical moves, I've got special moves, I've got anything you can name, and I bet you Silvally gets it. It also gets Grass Pledge for some reason, which I think is pretty funny. Only Grass Pledge, not Fire or Water Pledge, just the Grass one. So I'm not sure why, but I'm certainly not complaining because it adds a nice extra coverage move for me. I also get a solid support move pool with U-Turn and Defog and Thunder Wave and, various things like that. This thing I am super excited to build with because the amount of room I have to make something interesting, make something that's good, specifically into my opponent's team, is the thing I love about draft leagues. This is the reasons why I love draft leagues all kind of smashed together into a little robot dog with a weird mohawk. It's just really cool, and I'm super excited to use it. Next up, speaking of set versatility, this was a pretty high-powered Terra format. So for context, the highest point mon you could get, the most expensive ones, were 17 points, and they allowed Terra captains up to 13 points. Usually, in Terra formats, it's a lot more limiting than that. Like, think about the comparison. That's only 4 points off the highest point value. Usually it's way lower. So just thinking about that, like, that's a crazy high power level for Terra. So I really wanted a solid Terra captain that was able to utilize that very high power threshold, and I think I got one. It's a bit of a fan favorite. Shout out Pokemon MD. I got Terra Arboleva. Now this is a set Terra format, which means I have to pick 3 types. I'm not limited to stab like some formats are, but I picked 3 very solid types for Arboleva. I've got Fire, Fairy, and Poison, and I'm sure you guys have seen this thing before. It's very good. I originally I thought it was a little overhyped, but I've seen this thing perform in high tier leagues. I've seen full high tier teams struggle to break Terra Arboleva, and as soon as I saw this thing on the board, I knew I don't want to play against that. So I'm just going to draft it so I don't have to prep for Terra Arboleva in a low tier league, because that sounds like a pain in the ass. So thank God I got it so I don't have to deal with it, because this thing is going to be extremely annoying for my opponents. Let me tell you, you've got Strength Sap, you've got Leech Seed, Giga Drain, Earth Power, and Leaf Storm, and a whole bunch of other stuff like Encore, and just a bunch of really annoying moves that I can just kind of get in my opponent's way. I can keep myself healthy and chip them down for the rest of my team. Also do get access to Terrain with the Seed Sower, and I can do some weird stuff with Harvest and Citrus Berry, or anything like that. And this thing, special attack wise, is nothing to sneeze at. 125 is very good, especially in a low tier format. That's doing pretty good work. So I'm very excited to use Terra Arboleva. I think this thing is going to be extremely annoying for my opponents to deal with. Now these were my top 2 picks. I was the last pick in the draft. I was the wheel, which means I picked these 2 at the same time. I didn't really have 2 separate picks. I just got one big one because I picked back to back, if that makes sense. So I picked Silvally and Arboleva back to back. And that is a crazy good start, because it essentially means I can have any type of wall breaker and I can have any type of wall that I want, because these 2 Pokemon can do a lot of things. It's a very versatile start, which has a bit of a problem for team building, which I realized. And I'll kind of explain it to you like this. When you pick a solid one-dimensional Pokemon, it's going to have weaknesses. It's going to have things that it struggles against. And with these 2 top Pokemon, I really didn't have that, because no matter what my opponent has, there's something I have in my toolkit that I can beat it with. And that's a great thing to have. But it also creates a little bit of a problem in the team builder, because I have nothing to supplement. I'm essentially starting from scratch weakness-wise, which is nothing to complain about, but it was a bit of a stress on me when I was building the team. But I think I did a pretty good job overall. So, next up, we've got another crazy versatile Pokemon, one I'm very excited to use. We've got Flygon. Shout out Flygon HG as well, my favorite Pokemon channel. This thing is crazy versatile. Usually, again, same kind of deal with Silvally. It's a bit held back by its stat spread, which is kind of mediocre by the, modern Gen 9 min-maxed standards. But it's very, very good in Draft League. It's very all over the board, solid. Base 80, like 80-80 bulk. Again, nothing to scoff at. It's very, very good. And it's got a crazy versatile move pool. Stealth Rocks, it can U-turn, it's got a strong stab, Earthquake, Dragon Dance, obviously. It even gets First Impression and Roost and Defog. It's just crazy how many things this Mon can do. I can run a bulky pivot, I can run Choice Band, I can run Dragon Dance, I can even run some special attacking stuff with Boom Burst and Throat Spray even. It's just very good. I think this Mon really highlights what I like about draft leagues and this format in particular. Same kind of deal with Silvally, I've already mentioned it a little bit, but it allows the lesser known Pokemon to shine, and it really gives me a lot of versatility, because you wouldn't normally think that it's that bulky, but in a low tier format with not a lot of power around to really deal with it as well, this thing is going to put in some work, and I'm very, very excited, because the opponent seeing it on the other side of the Terra preview, or on the other side of the team preview, doesn't really tell them what to expect in any capacity at all. And that's something I really like to have. Controlling the information of what they know and what they think I could do is a very strong thing to do. So very excited to use Flygon. Very cool Pokemon from my favorite generation. And let's get into the next one. So, like I said, I picked this Mon with Flygon because I was on the wheel. And I'm very excited to use this one as well. It's not quite as versatile, but it is extremely strong, especially in the low tier format. And that is Hisuian Braviary. With this Sheer Force ability, the immediate first thing you think of is just Sheer Force Life Orb, and this Mon is very, very good at that. We've got Hurricane for a 110 base stab move, boosted by Sheer Force and Life Orb. That's crazy strong. We've also got Psychic for solid secondary stab, and Esper Wing if we also decide to run another one of our great abilities, Tinted Lens, for some speed boosting stuff. Esper Wing is Braviary Hisui's signature move, which is essentially Aqua Step from Aqua Ball, if you know what that is. It's just a 80 base power stab move that boosts my speed every time I use it. We also get solid coverage in Heat Wave, agility for patching up our a little bit weak speed stat of just base 65, and U-turn for pivoting, as well as Roost for staying healthy. This Pokemon is also pretty decently bulky with our amazing base HP stat of 110. I'm very excited to use this. I think it's going to be a very strong breaker. Not so versatile as my top 3, but that's a really high bar to fill, and this thing doesn't need to be versatile. It just clicks buttons, and the opposing team kind of disappears. So I think this is going to put in some work this season. Very strong thing to make my opponent prep for. I think this thing demands an answer. Just by seeing that I have the capacity to bring it, I think it demands preparation, and that's something that's always nice. Next up, I wanted a very solid steel type, preferably with the capacity to pivot around, something that can help get my teammates in safely, something that can just be a very versatile Pokemon. I got a very strong Pokemon for that. I got Cobalion. This thing is also very versatile, also very strong, especially in a low tier format. This thing, again, backing up that theme of my team this season, which is versatility. This thing can run physical, it can run special. It's got Sword Stance, it's got Calm Mind, it's got Stealth Rocks, it's got Body Press and Iron Defense, it's got Priority and Vacuum Wave, and Pivoting and Volt Switch. That's just about everything you could ask from a Mon. Legitimately, there is no role that you could really not fill with this thing. It can even be pretty specially bulky with an Assault Vest if you needed to. And it's not bad with Volt Switch being able to pivot, especially off my solid 90 special attack. This thing to me is an Iron Treads light. It doesn't get Rapid Spin, unfortunately, but it's basically Iron Treads except for that. My Volt Switch is stronger, which is nice, and I have the capacity to run a special set. So it's basically Iron Treads with no Rapid Spin. And you guys know how much I love Iron Treads. If you've seen some of my previous seasons, Iron Treads has been a very hard carry for me, especially with the Assault Vest set. I love that set because it's so good. And this just reminds me of that in all the best ways. We can set up rocks, we can sweep games with Sword Stance or Calm Mind. Just nothing really to dislike about this thing. It's very good at a lot of things. Solid base 108 speed tier, very, very good physical bulk, passable special bulk, solid mixed offenses. Not much more you could ask, really, and I'm very, very excited to get to use this thing. I think my team is going to be very hard to prep for, specifically because of how many different things I could run. I think it's like good luck to my opponents trying to prep for everything, because there will always be something you can't prep for on my team, and that's something I'm very, very happy about. Next up, I saw a really, really cool option for my team, sitting at a pretty low price point. And I've got a bad history with Sneasler, but this thing I think is very similar and also very different in a couple key ways that make me like it a lot better. And that Mon is Grafaiai. So, I do have access to Unburden with Grassy Terrain from Arbalava. I do not see myself bringing it every week by any means, but it's a very nice option to have. I think my main problem with Sneasler was it was kind of one-dimensional, but this thing is not at all. It can run Prankster and Poison Touch. All three of its abilities are very, very good. This thing primarily is going to be an offensive pivot, kind of getting in my opponent's way, stopping them from setting up, spreading poison, parting shot, and encore, very good. I can also run a sword stance set with Unburden if I need to, which is very good. Base 110 speed in a low tier format is excellent. Encore from Prankster is obviously very nice, especially for something setting up to sweep the game. I can just come in and at priority say no you don't and erase all the progress that they made, forcing a switch essentially. I can knock off, I can U-turn, I can Prankster them a bad item like an iron ball or a ring target or something like that. And I think this gives me a lot of very strong options. Again, crazy set versatility on this thing. Base 80 special attack ain't even that bad. Like, it's completely fine. And overall, I think this is a very strong mod, something I'm very, very excited to use. I think it gives me a lot of very cool options for my team, gives my team a lot of extra dimension that I can pull out like some crazy stuff just out of nowhere and run away with the game. Next up, the astute among you will notice that my team is missing a rapid spinner, which is very, very necessary in a draft league game. You want to be able to remove hazards while still setting up your own. I saw a very, very strong rapid spinner for, again, a pretty low price point. And that mon is Bramblegast. Now, this thing is very, very solid. I like it a lot in draft leagues. I think it's a bit easy to deal with its ghost stab because Poltergeist is its really only ghost physical move that hits above Shadow Sneak, which is not a great place to be at. But other than that, there's not much to dislike about it. 115 attack is solid. Rapid Spin, obviously great. Spikes as well. Strength Zap is a broken move. Power Whip is very, very strong. And Shadow Sneak as well, coming off a base 115 attack stat, is also very solid. Base 90 speed is not bad at all. And I think this thing is just going to be a very solid offensive spinner. Wind Rider is a great ability because it nullifies a lot of my weaknesses to flying and fire and ice in the form of Heat Wave or Blizzard or most special flying moves, I should say. I don't like its offensive sets as much because I think they rely a bit much on Poltergeist, which is kind of easily prepped for. But maybe I'll bring a Choice Band set, who knows, we'll see. But I think this Pokemon is going to do very well this season. I think it's a very solid Pokemon. And I'm excited to see it put in some work. Now, next up, I wanted a special wall breaker. I think my team at this stage in the draft was a bit heavy on physical, so I wanted a special wall breaker to kind of patch that up a little bit. And I think I got a very strong Pokemon. I've used it before in a draft league, and I was absolutely not disappointed. And that Pokemon is Klawitz. This thing is very solid across the board. Very serviceable bulk with 71 HP and 88 and 89 in its defenses. This thing is surprisingly bulky, especially with my excellent defensive typing in pure water. Obviously, base 120 special attack with Mega Launcher is nuts. I get a lot of very strong special moves. I get Flip Turn and I get U-Turn. And this thing is just, it's what you see on the box. It's bulky, it hits hard, and it pivots around. And I think it's going to be great. Having a great bulky water type to click strong Mega Launcher moves into my opponent is going to be excellent. This is a very solid Assault Vest user. Choice Specs hits extremely hard. And excellent coverage as well, boosted by my Mega Launcher. I think this thing is going to do great this season. I'm very excited to use it. I have seen this thing check Palafin before, which is awesome, and I'm excited to see it do some work this season. I think it's going to be great. Now, at this point in the draft, I had been conserving my points pretty well. I had essentially one last big budget pick I could use, and I'm pretty happy with what I got. Fun fact, this is one of my little brother's favorite Pokemon, and I think it's a great Pokemon. It's a very solid Volt Switch user. I've seen this thing perform in high tier leagues, and is extremely hard to take down. It's a very cool Pokemon. And that Pokemon is Bellibolt. This thing is an excellent pivot with Volt Switch. Electromorphosis is a solid ability, which gives my apparently very mediocre 103 attacks, special attack stat a very solid boost. With Volt Switch, I do solid damage. Parabolic Charge for healing. I get Slack Off as well. Soak is a surprisingly good move because it removes the ability to check my electric moves. And it's pretty good. I can catch a ground type switching in, soak it, and then it doesn't wall me anymore, which is nice. We've got Thunder Wave for supporting my team. Very, very bulky Pokemon. Very, very annoying to take down, especially with Slack Off. And I think this thing is going to do great. I really, really like having bulky pivots to get in my more offensive Pokemon. I think Bellibolt is great at that, and I think it's going to do amazing this season. Next up, I had 1 point left. When you look at 1 point Pokemon, there's a couple things you want to look for. You don't want to look at their defensive profile really at all. You really want to look for what value they can get in very niche cases. Like Prankster is good, Setting Hazards is good, and I got a very, very solid 1-pointer. I could see myself bringing maybe in a couple games. Maybe not a couple, maybe more like one very niche case. But that's pretty much all you want out of a 1-pointer. And that Pokemon is Swadloon. Now this thing is very bulky with Eviolite, with my solid base defenses. And the main reason I got this thing is Sticky Web. This is my secondary Terra Captain. I couldn't use a more high budget one because Arboliva took up most of my Terra slot, which I'm definitely not mad about because that Mon is very, very good. Which did kind of, consume most of my budget, so I wasn't able to have maybe a different Terra Captain other than Swadloon, but certainly nothing to complain about. Very bulky with Eviolite. Synthesis is great for staying healthy, and Switcheroo for, in case I don't want to run Eviolite, I can try and give them a bad item, something like that. Not much to say about this one, really. Pretty much self-explanatory. I just wanted a Sticky Web Mon. And yeah, that's pretty much the team. I'm very, very happy with it. I think the set versatility is nuts. Absolutely insane. I think I could run so many different things this season, and I'm very excited to try them all. Especially Silvally, I think is going to be insane because it's literally anything I want. It's a mini Arceus, and I can run essentially whatever, and I'm very excited to try it out. But I will see you guys for the rest of the season. Thanks for watching.